Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and today let's talk stubby wrenches, or midget wrenches, or short wrenches, or not long wrenches, primarily the Snap-ons. I've got a set of stubbies that go from 19 down to 4, but some might say these aren't stubbies, those are ignitions. Some might say these aren't real stubbies, they're short wrenches, but in fact there seems to be a short wrench. Here's a standard Snap-on, here's a short Snap-on, and here's what Snap-on calls a midget wrench. Some people don't like the term midget, might be demeaning. So we've got like ignition wrenches, we got stubby wrenches, we got midget wrenches, we got short wrenches, we got full-size wrenches, which Snap-ons are longer than a lot of other brands, which means the Snap-on regular wrench is actually a long wrench, but then Snap-on does make really long wrenches. And in that same kind of odd line, Mac makes what they call midget wrenches, or excuse me, yeah, stubby wrenches, and Snap-on makes midget wrenches, and a smaller stature Snap-on is actually shorter than the comparable Mac, but in the regular sized wrench, the regular Snap-on is almost the Mac long one. So anyway, there's no standard apparently. So some earlier stubbies or midgets actually had thinner walls, less material, but what I've got are two 18s here. Found a use for my 18 as a prop in a movie. But anyway, these look quite similar as far as the wall thicknesses. You know, it could be just a hair thinner, I don't know. The beam looks pretty dang close to about the same in terms of thickness and width. But some of the earlier ones that I found actually had smaller dimensions. So they weren't just a shorter handle, they were actually literally thinned out all over the place. We're going to get to why you'd want these in just a moment, but there are some variations. There are lots of stubby ratchets. There are ratchets that actually also move at a joint right here. There are angled stubbies. There are flat stubbies. There are stubby box ends, and I love these. Or these are short box ends. I don't know if they call them stubbies, but if they're the same length as a stubby, are they short or a stubby? Anyway, these are just ideal, super handy, and they not only have this cant to them, or a cant here, but they've got a cant there. So they just fit nice in your hands, and these taught me that I don't like these, that I really like these. And the difference is, in a lot of the cases when I've actually needed a stubby, I also needed to get my fingers wrapped around it, and I'm not sure what you're supposed to do here, you know, with these gear wrench ones that are flat, unless you have an overhang. So your bolt is, or your nut is over here, and then you can actually work with it out here. Otherwise, you can't really grab these things very well. So you need at least a little bit, and that's just the perfect amount of cant in my opinion. When I get out here on the handle, I can clear my knuckles. Obviously, you lose a lot of leverage. In fact, if I line these two up, you can see I'm dealing with, you know, approximately 1/2 of the handle length, and probably less than that in lever. So if I could, you know, if I needed to pull on 100 pounds with this guy, I'd have to pull essentially twice as hard on this thing because it's only giving me half the leverage. But that's not really what they're for. The stubbies not only fit into very small places, but also can deliberately reduce the torque. So sometimes if you're working with, you know, fasteners that require a gentle hand, and you've got something like this, once you've got a lever arm this big, it's very difficult to get any kind of, you know, a full appreciation for just how much force you're putting on something that far away. And I've snapped off things. In fact, that's one of the reasons people will often talk about not using very long lever arms, you know, like a 24-inch breaker bar on a standard car lug nut. Because you can just generate so much force, you just snap the studs out of the wheel if you're not careful. But anyway, so a couple of things. One, I like, I'm not a fan of right now of the ratcheting. I don't have a set of the canted ratchets. But usually I don't necessarily need a whole lot of ratcheting, but if it was really fine, I could see that as being helpful. I do like the cant here. I like that it's full size and not a stripped down one. I do have some thinner wrenches for different applications, and once you get to a thinner wrench, you also, or a low torque wrench, you also start to get into a few other issues, like the thinner handle cuts into your hand a lot harder. I think one of the reasons they probably kept the original form of the full-size wrench is because it was easy to just slip a pipe over this or something, or bang on it with a hammer or some other tool to generate leverage. And if they thinned up everything, people would be breaking the stubbies. I guess I kind of also look at them as I'm paying more for less. But when you need them, or if you need them, they're pretty amazing. The question of whether or not you need stubby tools, I probably figured out I already like these things, is probably up to you. A lot of people have them and almost never use them, but when they do need them, it's almost like the set instantly paid for itself. I'd be curious in the comments if you like them or not, if you use them or not. The short wrenches, to me, are not a great benefit when you could go to a full stubby, because there aren't a lot of situations where that's going to be, the make or break line, but these two certainly could be. And I'm not seeing a great benefit by having both of those. So you really got to jump from one to the other, I think. And this is not a great compromise, so it's not like, well, I'll just get the shorts and then not worry about it, because this one really doesn't allow you the full leverage of some of the longer handles. When you get down to the really small stuff, I don't know how you could really make a real useful wrench that's a whole lot longer than that. This is an 8 and a 10, and this I use, I've got a few very specific purposes, primarily dealing with mountain bikes and road bikes that use this size, and it's nice to be able to get in, and literally this isn't because I have to reach in very far. It allows me the freedom to operate another tool right next to this one, whereas if I had a stubby or something, I might be running into my hand, or a regular size. So this actually is great. Plus sometimes I can use it where I'll roll it down and it'll actually catch on something and stop, and then I can operate with two hands here, but you have to get far enough out that you can actually encounter something else. So this particular one is amazing for that. As far as these box ends, just the sheer size, it is an 18 and a 20 millimeter in a small form factor. Great for travel. Generally, there's plenty of leverage for a lot of the stuff that I do. Of course, your mileage may vary, but just having so many different sizes in a very small set of wrenches. But they are heavy. These are pretty dang beefy wrenches, even though they're short. But I love those things. These gear wrench, I got them a long time ago. I don't even know where they're made. Not the greatest quality. I think they're 72 tooth. But I can feel it when it's on a fastener. There's a little bit more play than on a Snap-on. The ratcheting I thought would be a great idea. It turns out, because I have to keep flipping it over and there's no knuckle clearance, that these actually are not quite as useful as I thought. Although it's kind of nice sometimes with the little ones, if you can get in and if you can hear that, just really fine clicking away. That can be handy. And you aren't going to generate a huge amount of force, but you also do have a larger size opening, and you can see the quality control there. It looks like one side. This side is a lot thicker than this side. So here's some regular length. You can kind of see the angles here of 3 different ones that mimic. These two mimic that, I don't know what it is, 15 degrees or something. And to me that makes a difference, but if you have that, you've got to have a switch then, which means now you got more parts, higher cost, and that's because you got to be able to reverse it. But this is just an amazing wrench. 10 millimeter again. That's if I'm not buying a set, I'll often start with that and then see if I like it or not. Anyway, so stubby wrenches, midget wrenches, short wrenches. The only thing more controversial, I think, or more opinionated online is maybe torque sticks or something. Trying to get a straight answer. People love them, hate them, have them, don't use them all the time, or cannot figure out why anyone would own them. I mean, it's the whole gamut. I have a set of the Snap-ons, again, 19 to 4. and I love them. When I need them, I really need them. I use them maybe 1/20th as often as I use a full-size wrench. But there are certain jobs where that's what I go to. Anytime you're reaching down into one of the tighter, smaller engines, smaller Toyotas and Subarus are what I end up on, and they just come in so handy. Plus, there's less chance of over tightening, so sometimes I may start with that, before I put a torque wrench on it, just because here it's easy to crank it up a little too much if I don't have that moment of wrist accurate. Anyway. I'm curious what you think about the stubby, the short, and the full-size wrenches, and primarily if it's worth it. And is it worth it to get Snap On or one of the lesser brands that actually, would be a tool you'd use very rarely, if at all. And with that, Doc out.